back to NationTalk podcast here in the Vancouver residency. Wrapping up our, we got 2 more episodes here.
Yeah.
We were talking outside before I introduced our guest, and we were talking about how time is the greatest currency that we have, not money. Time holds the most amount of value, and when someone gives us their time, it's the ultimate, it's the most gracious gift we can get. And so without further ado, our guest today, Asad Khan, also known as Khanvict, from all of our socials, and as the artist Khanvict. We appreciate you being here, my brother. Thank you
Pleasure.
so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, my man.
Absolutely.
Could you give us your full name though? Because I don't think everybody knows your full name.
Yeah, it's Asad Muhammad Khan Randhawa.
Randhawa.
Yeah.
Threw in a little Punjabi last name at the end.
Okay.
I think a lot of people know about that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know about that actually. Yeah, my dad's full name is Muhammad Khan Randhawa.
All
So
right.
I come from a family of Randhawas, and it's our lineage in Pakistan, Punjab. Yeah.
So the first time we met you, well, actually, so I should give us some background. So when we were starting Fit Nation, we were modeling ourselves after juggernauts in the city.
Right.
And Decibel came in at number 1. It was on our vision board. It was on like, hey, there's these people are doing it.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And I mean, you've grown that company to be the biggest DJ company in North America, if I'm not mistaken. And so I think Jazz reached out to you.
Yeah. Well, basically, I was at work and. We would, at this point, we were just playing playlists during the cardio sessions.
Right.
And this girl, it's actually DJ SB's sister-in-law, Preet Baines. She's like, can I play a playlist? I said, go ahead. She got on SoundCloud. She's like, I want to play Khanvict's playlist. I was like, Khanvict? Who's that? I've never heard of this person. It's like, oh yeah, he's a DJ and so forth. And I'm like, okay, so there's a convicted felon out there who's playing music. This is pretty cool. And so anyways, started listening to music. I was like, wow. This is wonderful. Then I had this vision go. Like, imagine a gym where there's a cardio session going on, and like this guy's playing a live set. So then I reached out to you.
Yeah, I remember doing
that. And you just agreed. You're like, yeah, no problem. Didn't charge anything for it. It was once again your time. Right. And we paid for the rental of whatever. You showed up, and it was such a blast.
Yeah. I had a great time actually. I still remember Tere Tille Tum was played, and your whole gym just exploded.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is.
We're big Monik fans. He was singing along.
Yeah,
but,
that was great.
What actually blew my mind about that was, yes, you showed up, you did the thing, and then we started talking, and you were packing your car up. I'm like, oh, you're probably going home or whatever. You were literally going to drive from there to the interior to do a wedding. And
had done a gig the night before.
It was at that moment that I realized your hustle is something that is not something that's learned. It seems like it's in your blood, and it pours over into these new endeavors that you're doing in life and stuff. And where does that hustle come from?
Oh man, this is a really good question for me for multiple reasons. You guys are probably gonna give me the same face that most people do when I tell you this. I actually still to this day, less so now, think I'm a very lazy guy.
Oh really?
And when I tell people, they're like,
Because
they're like, hold on a second, you're 33 and you've done all this. And I think I grew up with a dad who was, my dad's stupid academic. He has got his master's, his PhD.
Yeah.
He comes from extreme poverty, so he had to basically, he realized when he was like in grade 10 or something that the only way he's going to get out of poverty is by educating himself.
Right.
And then he couldn't afford the education, so he realized the only way he's going to get the education is to make sure that his grades are good enough that it's a free scholarship ride all the way through.
The hustle.
And he did it.
Crazy.
And I grew up without him there most of my younger childhood. My dad was not around because he left to go to Japan from Pakistan in I think I was 2 years old.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I was 2. And
how long was he gone for?
He was gone for almost 10 years, man.
What?
Yeah, he came back when I was 8-9 years. I think I was 10 or 11 or something.
Crazy.
And then 2 years after that we're in Canada. So I grew up in Pakistan without a father for most of my life.
Interesting.
But what happened?
This is the village in Pakistan, so this isn't.
So my mom and dad had both done fairly well.
Okay, by this point, right?
By that point, my dad got married. My mom actually came from a family of business, so they had done quite well for themselves. But my dad comes from really strict poverty, where food twice a day was an issue.
Oh shit!
That kind of poverty. But he was, in the village, he was by far the most studious, smartest guy, and my grandfather, who I grew up really close to, he was a bit of a visionary.
Right.
So he was like, my daughter is going to marry this guy. And everybody was making fun of them. He's
crazy.
This guy from the pin doesn't have anything going for him. Why don't you do a rishta somewhere more? Because back in the day, it's all arranged.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
But he was like, no, you don't understand. This guy's obsessed with education and working. He's going to surpass everybody who already has everything.
So he saw value in who he was
Yeah,
instead of where like,
exactly.
how much money he had.
And so that's
I see
how
where
my
you
mom
get that from too.
Yeah,
now.
so my mom and dad got married. And my biggest influence, I think, in ideologies and philosophies come from my younger time with my grandfather.
Right.
Because he played a big role in after partition in politics and like building some of the systems in Faisalabad and all that. But my dad called me lazy as soon as he came back from Japan, because he was like, well, you're like a 75% student. Like, I've been A's all my life. What's going on here?
Right.
And more than anything, what got to me was the resentment that he was showing my mother for it.
Oh.
Like, oh, you didn't raise the kids in a way where they're like... And I was like, hold on a second. My mom's been a single mother that raised 4 children in Pakistan, doesn't drive. That's 10 times building Decibel.
Yeah,
that's 100 times building Decibel.
Like mothering children and coming from where you're coming from, but like that's heavy shit for 12
yeah,
years, man.
So and there was that, and I think at a very young age, actually when my dad, the night he left for Japan, there's a video from there, and I'm sitting there on his lap, and he goes, well, and he's joking. He's like, now I'm leaving. You're the man of the house. You got to make sure you look after your mom. And I'm learning this now as I'm studying that kids are actually the most influence in those younger years.
Right, 100%.
And I think one of my strengths that has served me well is that I think I had a brain that was quite sharp. But even at that age, you look in the video, I'm not looking at him like he's joking. I think for a second and I go, okay, Dad, but the problem is I don't have a motorcycle.
Oh, fuck.
How am I going to do the
You're
groceries?
already starting to connect
I'm
the
sort of like,
dots.
okay, well, if I'm going to go, Dad does groceries and takes mom, they hang the lifafi on the side of the motorcycle and come back. But I can't ride a motorcycle.
You're thinking logistics, not like, holy shit.
Yeah, I was like
logistically putting it together.
I was not thinking he's joking.
Crazy.
So I think I grew up a little bit ahead of my age for that reason. And so when I started Decibel and I was DJing and stuff, to me it was just like I was so passionate. I didn't think about the work.
Right.
It was just like, man, people love having me come and rock their party and have a good time. And
right.
I mean, that alone is a podcast to me. And
You've been stepping up to the plate since you were 12. So when it came to that, it was like, this is
I have memories in Pakistan of like literally on a bicycle van when I'm like 7 years old doing groceries for my mom. She doesn't drive. And I'm like, and I remember having to balance the groceries in a way so the weight is even on either side of the bike so I don't trip or fall on the way back.
Oh, fuck.
I'm like 7, 8 years old here. And I'm thinking, okay, well, if I put the eggs in this one, and then this will balance this out, and then I can ride home.
And God forbid you break one of the eggs or something.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
So I grew up with that, and then I think there was always this like desire to provide for my family. I definitely have that provider archetype.
Right.
And then family becomes an extension. I think of all my boys as my family. I
right.
think of all. So then it was like, well, I'm getting booked. My boys aren't getting booked.
Right.
How do I change that?
Right.
I need to invest in them. They need to be bigger names than I am.
Interesting.
So I think it was very compassion driven. So it didn't feel like I was out, working myself, which I was, but it didn't feel like it at the time.
Right. Interesting. So, like we're talking about the inception of like Decibel and stuff. So when did DJing and when did music enter your life?
Mom was a huge music fanatic growing up.
Right.
I think so. Jay-Z had this interview with Letterman, and he says this thing. He's like, if you're a musician, there's 2 things that happen. You either born into a family of instrumentalists, so everybody plays the guitar and the piano, and you just naturally do that.
Yeah.
Or you grew up in a family that just listens to great music.
Yeah.
And then the greats, the Nusrats, the A.R. Rahmans, they're like in your ear all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you develop this taste and knowing of what you like.
Yeah.
And that the latter was the one for him. He didn't play any instruments growing up.
Right.
And that interview gave me a lot of confidence when I started making music, because I don't play any instruments. I'm learning now.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up with formal education.
Interesting.
But my mother was like, when I was like 10, I was watching Mirza Ghalib's documentary with her.
Crazy.
I was watching... Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan was born and raised on the same street as my mom, so there's a very strong connection there.
Right.
We have some of his cassettes and stuff my mom has that were like from like way back 30 years
Crazy.
ago that she still holds on to. She has seen him play in her living room in Faisalabad, right in front of her when he was a kid.
That changes your
That's
DNA.
Yeah.
Anyone that's listened to and Nusrat has done great things for us as well.
Yeah.
You watch him, but for your mom to have seen that and then have you, that's in your DNA. Like,
so I was just around that, man, and then
crazy.
I was at UBC doing my engineering degree, and I wasn't passionate about engineering. I was working at Club Monaco downtown. Actually,
that's hilarious.
And I love telling the story because I learned a lot from this story. I was driving home after doing this gig down working at Club Monaco, doing this gig. My language just says doing
Yeah.
And I was at Club Monaco, I'm driving home, and I pull into a gas station on 5 in Cambie in Richmond. And there's like 2 gas stations or 3 gas stations in that corner, I think. Sorry, 5 in Bridgeport. And I go into a Chevron, and this nice car pulls up, and I'm just admiring the guy's car. Doors open, and this guy's Vic Judy. He's a kid I know from high school.
Right.
And Vic and I were a little bit outcast in high school. Like
Right.
he had come from a different school, so all the popular kids in this school kind of bullied him because he was successful. He had a beautiful girlfriend, drove a nice car, so all the boys kind of were like, "Screw this guy," right?
Yeah.
But he was super nice to me, and which was a rarity at that time between me and other kids in school. And he helped me out on a couple of things, and I helped him out with one of his projects in electronics. I think he really had to pass electronics, and he was struggling. I helped him out. I had forgotten all about it, but he remembered.
Oh, shit.
So he comes out of the car. He's like, "Yo, like, how are you doing? Blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "Oh, I'm good, man. I'm just working downtown and part-time job, going to school." He's like, "Well, man, you really helped me out back in school. Like, why don't you come work for my dad?"
Crazy.
And I was like, "Doing what?" His dad owns AAA movies.
Oh, no way.
He's like, "My dad sends out DJs to all the halls, videographers, photographers, whatever." Because at that time, AAA was the wedding industry.
Yeah, I mean, every reception you
if
saw
you got
that.
married, they did everything.
Yeah,
right?
Like AAA and then H&R.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the new video companies came out of that. And
For sure.
so that was it. It was pure chance.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what a DJ was at that point in my life.
Crazy.
I was in third year university. I thought if you went to a party, music just played. I didn't know there was a guy actually playing the music.
Oh, shit.
And so he's like, "Oh, what do you want to be?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't really have any interest in photo or video."
Yeah.
And he says, credit goes to him because he's like, "Man, when you were in school, you were always listening to music.
Crazy.
You always had headphones in. You had the MP3 players. You were
Yeah.
downloading, burning CDs."
Yeah.
He's like, "Why don't you learn to be a DJ?"
Right.
And I learned that lesson. Sometimes we don't see our gifts
No, for sure.
because we're in it.
Yeah.
And somebody from the outside who's watched me in school says, "You were like obsessed with music."
Right.
And so he said, "Come see my dad the next day." And I woke up the next morning and I had a soccer game. And I was like, "I can go to soccer or I can go to see this guy and see if there's an opportunity here."
Crazy.
And I said, "Screw the game. I'm going to go."
Crazy.
But the lesson I learned from that is I don't ever say no to a coffee anymore.
Right.
Because that one coffee changed my life.
Yeah.
And since then I can tell you 20 that have changed my life.
Right.
So now if somebody reaches out to me and it doesn't matter how busy I am.
Yeah.
If they're like, "Hey, I just want to talk, get to know you."
Yeah, that's what I reached out
Yeah.
to you. And I was like, I can't believe this guy's even giving me the time.
No, I learned a really valuable lesson is that when it's that the reward of giving that time that you don't get back.
Yeah.
Is that the opportunities from each meeting are like an endless lotus flowers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Each where you go, you don't know where that's going to go.
Right.
And I think if you meet the right people, it's an endless lotus that keeps giving.
And it'll eventually pay back if you even needed to.
Yeah. That's how I got into DJing. And then from there, it's just like,
And then, so then you've always had entrepreneurial spirit. Like how did Decibel come together then?
Again, when I was younger, man, I thought I was going to be an engineer. I'm going to work 9 to 5.
Yeah.
That's my life. My dad did that. I'm just going to do it and try to make as much money as I can to take care of my family. And I started working for them. But as soon as I got on stage, that's a different feeling for me. Changed me. First time I went to a party, it was at Fraserview Banquet Hall. There was an in-house DJ on the main side. Because Fraserview has a small side too, right?
Yeah.
And the funny story is actually I was never allowed to DJ on the big side. When I first started, they're like, "You can only DJ on the small side." And the DJ on this side used to be like, "No, you're not DJing the big party."
We should go see them now.
I've done a few big gigs at Fraserview.
My guy.
But yeah, I think the thing was I saw that there was an underlying, and I no disrespect to anybody, but I just saw that there was an underlying lack of professionalism in the whole industry as a whole. It wasn't just to DJs.
Right.
But DJs in particular, a lot of times it was like a lot of drinking on the job, a lot of wearing jeans and a t-shirt to like go rock someone's reception.
For sure.
And I was like, hold on, like what if there was a way of doing this where like you put on a suit and a tie, you look the part, you're super pro, you show up on time, you don't drink on the job,
right? You
go out of your way. If like the client's slideshow doesn't work, that's not your job, you fix it anyway.
Right.
So when I was an in-house DJ, I was like, I would take blank CDs with me and DVDs. So if a client came and the DVD wasn't, because most people don't know how to burn a proper slideshow.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, oh, here's our slideshow. I'd put it in, it wouldn't work. I was like, don't worry, I can fix this.
Right.
And I wasn't getting paid for that.
Right.
I would just put it on my computer, burn a new DVD, play their slideshow, and they'd be like, oh, here's $100.
Crazy.
I was like, what? I learned a lesson as people pay for good service.
Yeah. I
was like, oh, this guy just gave me $100 for burning him a DVD because
What year is this?
I took his headache away. This is 2000. How long have I been DJing now? 2010, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, 2010 I started.
Crazy. 11 years ago.
11 years ago.
Fucking
Yeah. And then at that time I started seeing like Aftershock come in and MIB come in,
Yeah.
and those guys were DJing the big receptions. Like
Right.
I was the guy doing their mayas, and then the reception would come. I'd show up to the hall really excited. I'm like, oh, today it's the big night.
Yeah.
And then I'm not DJing.
Oh, shit.
I was like, I don't want to be the guy in the booth. I want to
Yeah,
be the guy on stage.
Yeah.
Like I've primed these guys all week.
Yeah,
Now I know what they want to hear.
Yeah.
Now,
And-
like now it's a different. Like by the reception, you've played 3 mayas or whatever it is. You know what they're like.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was like, okay, I want to do that. Then I connected with, Aftershock. I joined his team. I learned a lot from him. I grew a lot with him. We had different visions on business, and we had, our falling out over money and stuff like that.
Right.
I had a different take with finances. Like I'm not a very financially attached person. My relationship with money, touch wood, is very, very healthy.
Yeah.
Like but at the same time, I really started to value what was fair. Like I was at a point where people were willing to pay more than like the guy who hired me to come DJ the reception.
Right.
And so that, that brings us challenges. But then from there, I was just like, I think there's a better way of doing this.
Yeah. It's time to innovate.
Yeah, and I was working downtown. I had a full-time job with AMEC.
Oh,
but
really?
I would just take my laptop with me, and I'd be doing my engineering work, and then like I have a 10-minute break, and I'm responding to like building my Decibel website, and then I'd just do my engineering work, and then be like, okay, like if I tell you like my schedule for that 1 week when Decibel was running at its prime and I was working full-time, there's no way I should be alive.
Yeah. Wow. So you were for a week as a full-time engineer, and you were running this company.
Yeah, like Decibel grew up. Alhamdulillah, blew up my face.
Right.
Alhamdulillah, it's just like blessings.
Right.
Yeah. And it just blew up. First year, we thought, okay, I said like I did the math. If we do 60 gigs, it's a great year.
Yeah.
We did 365.
Holy fuck.
And I was my own accountant, my own manager, my own sales, my own everything. So
Wow.
and I had a full-time job.
Wow.
So what I was doing was my schedule at that time, 2014, when Decibel's first year, 2014 September 29th was our first gig.
Right.
And the following year, 2015, was our first full wedding season.
Crazy.
And that year, I was working downtown, full-time job. So I would go on a Monday morning, I'm waking up at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. at the SkyTrain, 8 a.m. I'm at the office. I'm here till 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock, I'm going back. I'm going straight to Starbucks on 74th and King George.
Yeah.
I'm meeting at least 4 clients.
Yeah.
I knew if I kept doing that, I'm going to kill myself. So I got a personal trainer. So you guys know the value of that.
Yeah.
So Jameson became my best friend.
Right.
And I was like, so I would finish 4 or 5 consultations at like 9 o'clock and go to the gym.
Crazy.
I would get my workout in.
It's the only thing that kept
No,
you sane.
it was like, it kept me fit. It kept me sane.
Yeah.
Work out till 10 o'clock, come home. And then I spend the next 2 hours sending those contracts I had signed, sending the invoices, doing the filing, making sure everything's filed away.
Crazy.
Go to bed at like 12, wake up at 6, do it again.
Yeah.
Still doable until the weekend comes.
Right. And
Now,
then you got gigs.
Friday, it's
Yeah.
the same thing, except after 5 o'clock, I'm going straight to the banquet hall, setting up, spinning till 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, I made a Decibel policy. We have no end time.
Yeah. No, we just keep
We
going
have no end
until
time.
they kick
As
us
long
out.
as you want to party, we're
Yeah.
going to keep DJing.
Yeah.
Because the people get so mad. It's like, I think people don't place enough emphasis on how important someone's wedding is to them,
100%.
especially when you become a vendor.
Yeah.
So the ethos of Decibel at the time was, and I like downloaded this into everyone's brain.
Yeah.
To us, a wedding comes 5 times a week.
Yeah.
To the people who hire us, it comes once in a lifetime most of the time.
Wow.
And if you remember that, you put your best foot forward every time you walk in. I don't care if you had a fight with your girlfriend.
No.
I've gone straight from a breakup and rocked someone's reception.
Crazy.
And like gone on the mic and made jokes while inside I'm like weeping.
Oh my God, Asad.
And I'm like, let's do this. The bride side, the groom side, blah, blah, blah. Rock it, boom. 5 minutes, look the other way. Okay, I'm good. Keep going.
Crazy.
And I think those things people don't see.
Yeah.
You just,
But I think it relates right back to that 7-year-old kid balancing the groceries on the
Right,
bike.
right.
You were the universe was preparing you for this your whole life.
Absolutely.
And that's probably why you're here and you didn't blow your brains out
Yeah.
when your schedule was crazy because it's probably a lot of trauma attached to your dad
Absolutely.
leaving and all of that
Absolutely.
stuff, but it was the ultimate gift.
Absolutely.
Because it prepared you for this life that you live now and
Our biggest hardships are our biggest presents.
straight up 100%.
The minute you learn to welcome them in, like, oh, this gift is about to teach me,
Yeah.
you get smarter. Your growth is infinite at that point because you're not just growing with the good, you're also growing with the bad.
Right.
You grow way more when shit's tough. Yeah.
You said something really interesting, and you said you have a very interesting relationship with finances. You're not financially attached, and it seems like. Now, I don't want to say your ego's dissolved because I don't believe in dissolving the ego.
Yeah,
I believe in having a healthy relationship with your ego. How much work have you actively done on that? Because it seems like you're very centered for someone who has had a crazy schedule,
Right.
has every reason to be. It sounds like some relationships have gone sour, and you have every reason to be bitter, but
Right.
you're not. What's your ecosystem for your ego, your mental health? What does that look like?
Yeah, there's a few things, man. Like, I love that question. And well, firstly, I just want to say I'm so happy that like 3 brown guys are sitting here talking about
Straight
that.
up.
First of all, like, I love that, or 5 of us, because BTS crew, like,
Yeah.
It's not one thing. I think my mother, I think, has a really healthy relationship with money.
Right.
And she has a really healthy relationship with art, so I've inherited some of that.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it is just work I've put in, which, you and I have talked about this.
Sure.
And just, I think the more work you do on yourself, you realize how minute your existence really is.
Yeah.
Most people want to make a ton of money because they're like, that's my legacy, what I'm building.
Yeah.
But let me just remind you, this planet's been around for billions of years before your 90 years or 80 years, which, by the way, does not even guarantee there's 90 or 80. It might only be
that's
30.
a blessing if you get there, yeah.
And it's going to be around for billions of years after.
Yeah.
So, like, what legacy? Whose legacy do we remember?
Exactly. No.
Think about the greatest people you know.
Yeah.
How often do you remember their legacy?
No.
You
Yeah.
don't.
No.
So then I was like, well, hold on. Like, the only thing that I am destined towards for sure is death.
Yeah.
So why am I going to spend this beautiful gift? Like, my biggest strength is I love life. I think we're so lucky.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a daily meditator now. Like, I think I'm 7 months in, I haven't missed a day.
Crazy.
And every morning I give gratitude for like my senses.
Yeah.
I was at a lake the other day and I was looking at this beautiful lake and the moon's on top and camping. And I'm like, I just had a thought that, man, if I didn't have vision, I couldn't take, or like this viewing.
Yeah.
When we're standing outside, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
And then when you do that every morning and you say, oh God, I can smell, I can touch, I can taste. And then the last one I say is the 6th sense, which is the intuition.
Yeah.
For me, that's my biggest driver.
Bars.
And I was like, when you say thank you for that in the morning, then there's nothing.
No.
You're like, oh, you already won the lottery.
But it sounds like you're in a state of gratitude. I feel like you're not just practicing gratitude, you're in a state of gratitude at all times. I mean, it's not just your morning practice. It's
No, 100%.
every day,
It's like,
every minute of your life,
Yeah.
So
let's
you
let's
practice-
take sorry to cut you off there.
Yeah.
Let's take the story back to 2001.
Sure.
So you guys come into Canada.
Yeah.
Your dad's promised a job.
Yeah.
There's no job here.
No
for him.
job. Yeah.
You guys run into some hard times.
Big time.
You're told that you can't get any haircuts.
Yeah, 100%.
Dad has to start cutting your hair.
Yeah.
You're trying to integrate into society.
Yeah.
How are those formative years in Canada for you? And then what did that do what role is that playing in the Asad that's saying I have to work full time and now I got to go to the gigs in the evening and I'm going to work 16 hours?
Yeah.
Everything. I'm so glad you asked.
And do you feel like that in a way is, there's yin and yang to that as well.
Absolutely.
And there's a gift and a curse to that as
Absolutely.
well. So how do you manage to ensure that, yes, it motivates you, but not to the point where you're just running all your life?
Yeah. I learned, I think I was 27 when I did my first psychedelic experience. And in that experience, my entire life played in front of me like it is for most people on their first big mushroom journey or whatever it is. And I just, on record, I'm a big advocate for the legalization of this. Like, it needs to happen.
Cheers to that.
100%.
Cheers to that, my guy. LSD, mushrooms, let's bring it all home. Let's bring it all home, folks.
100%.
Remedy kombucha.
Shout out Remedy.
And one of the things I realized in that trip was that I was overworking myself to the end of my health.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to prove to every kid that told me in high school that I didn't belong, that I was going to belong.
Yeah.
But I realized that, revenge or vengeance or that kind of thought process of like, I'm going to prove somebody wrong is like holding on to a poison for somebody else.
That's fucking bars.
You're holding on to a poison for somebody else, but you're holding it inside you.
Right.
Crazy.
You think you're holding it to punish somebody else.
Yeah.
but your body is the one carrying it.
Yeah.
And so I actually remember being on stage once, and one of the kids that bullied me a lot in high school comes up on stage. I'm DJing someone's party, and he's like, and I'm like in the middle of DJing, and like when I'm DJing, I really try to be present.
Yeah, I've seen you work. You're in your
I don't
zone.
like I introduced this idea of a +1 DJ so that he takes the request, so my DJ's zone isn't canceled.
Yeah.
So whenever we send a guy, people are like, oh, how you have 2 guys? I was like, it's because I want the DJ to stay in his zone.
Yeah.
So I was in that zone, I'm spinning, and this guy comes. I didn't have somebody with me, and he taps on my shoulder, and I look up, and I'm like, whoa.
Face to face with your child.
Face to face. I'm like, whoa, this guy has like kicked my ribs in.
Oh shit.
Like, you know.
Oh, serious
Shit.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I got a call when I was like 15 or 16, and you know when you're new in a country and you're a teenager, you want to belong. I came from Pakistan. I was a very popular kid in school. I played sports. I was great at cricket. Cricket there is ice hockey.
Yeah.
You know, I come here, everybody's making fun of me playing cricket.
Yeah.
I was like, hold on a second. And then what was mind-boggling was that the kids who were picking on me most were brown kids. And I was like, hold on, I'm a Randhawa. You guys are not, we're the same people.
Imaginary lines.
Yeah. And then that time, you know, I get a call. They're like, hey, we're going to go to the movies. You want to come? That call to me was everything. I was like, okay, here, I'm getting included.
I'm finally in.
Wow, these guys are telling me to come to a movie. And I remember like asking my mom for $10. Didn't have the money.
No.
So I like scavenged the whole house for like quarters and like pennies and dollars. And I made $9.85 put together. And I was like, okay, the rest I'll get from one of the guys. I'll go to this movie.
Yeah.
But what was driving that was this like, because as humans, we're wired to belong.
Yeah.
It is our survival is based on, especially when we're like hunter gatherers. If you didn't belong, you're gonna get eaten up. You're gonna die.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, my instinct, and I didn't know this then, but like the kid was like, oh, you really gotta belong for survival. You gotta go. So shutters, blinders to all like the red flags, and I'm just going.
Oh, fuck.
And I go there, and it's just a group of guys that just like the idea was to get me out, to jump me.
Yeah, they set you up.
So I go there. They take my money, my $9, because they want to go buy weed. And I'm like, at that point, I didn't know what weed was. And I remember being on the side of the street on Canby Road, and like 10 guys are like booting me. And I'm like, what have I done to like deserve this? Like, why am I? And then at home, my mom and dad are like struggling to survive. My dad's working all night as a security guard after getting a PhD. My mom has a master's degree, and all her life has been a woman that reads poetry and like art. And now she was cleaning other people's homes and toilets and stuff. So I was like, they already got enough going on. Yeah. I'm not going to go home and tell them, hey, I got beaten up by a bunch of guys. Yeah. So I go and like I make sure my bruises are hidden, and next morning I'm at school. And I go to school, and everybody's making fun of me for getting beaten up by these kids.
God damn, dude.
And I'm like, hold on. Like, why did I come here? I
Yeah.
hated that we came to Canada initially. Because I was like, we had everything. I lived in if you've ever been to Islamabad, I love Vancouver. Yeah. Islamabad is the most beautiful city I've ever seen. Yeah. Mountains, trees, beautiful people, like beautiful. Yeah. And I was just like, I didn't get the move. Now I do. I'm so grateful we're here.
Most definitely.
But yeah, that I think that put me in this place where I was like, I gotta belong. And I'm going to do what it takes to belong. And I'm really grateful that it wasn't, I could have easily gone down the drugs or the violence or gangs.
You could have just been bitter. Like, I'm surprised you're not bitter and still resentful for those people. And it shows how much work you've done on yourself. I'm sure psychedelics took care of a lot of that. Or if you might have already taken care of it before that. But how were you not a bitter, resentful person? Which leads me into the question about music. So... you are now successful as a business owner. Actually, you told me, I'm going to back up a bit. You said something really dope last time we talked. Yeah. And you said that there's 2 ways to attain financial freedom. Right. One is to make more money, of course. And the other is to reduce your needs and wants.
Your threshold,
And it seems like you live, I don't want to say a minimalist lifestyle, but you've trimmed a lot of the fat out of your life. Yeah. And so... what led to kind of taking a step back from this, the biggest DJ company in North America, and now you're saying that you want to pursue your artistry? How is that break up with, okay, I'm going to reduce this income or whatever the situation was? And then what was drawing you in from the artistry? Is that like now dealing with, okay, you've seen the childhood, like that connection your mom gave you to music, and now you're bringing out your true self? Or like, what was that journey like?
Yeah, I mean... I'll ask you this, Ben, like, after you started doing the work, did the things you had interest in change?
Of course. 100%.
It's the same thing.
That's where I'm at now.
It's the same thing. So it was that I I think there's, Mark Nepo is this amazing writer and poet, and he has this. He says, like when that switch happens, they call that like the spiritual night of awakening or something. When your darkest moment usually kicks you into that. And there's two ways that process starts, according to him. He says either you're broken open, which I really like, because life just beats you to that point where okay, I got to do something, or you willfully shed.
Oh shit.
And I think I've done a bit of both.
Right.
I think I was broken open.
Yeah.
I was shown what life could be like through psychedelics.
Right.
Because psychedelics don't fix you overnight.
No.
They just give you a taste of what it could be like.
Yeah,
what
exactly.
genuine
perspective.
Yeah, perspective.
I always say this about psychedelics, like we're big advocates of psychedelics, but the work actually begins once your trip is done.
Absolutely.
You're unpacking,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
and that's when the work starts.
It needs to
So
be done in
it
conjunction
takes
with other
years,
things.
100%.
Yeah.
It takes
Integration,
with therapy and with a counselor and
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
But the work starts and it lasts for years after your
Yeah.
big trip. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure you're still unpacking.
I
right?
came from therapy before I
Yeah.
came here. I just told you
Yeah.
that in the elevator.
Yeah.
And I went there and she's like, "You're glowing, you're vibing. Why are you here?" And I said,
Yeah.
"I'm here for maintenance."
Shout out Anna Claudia. I mean,
Yeah.
she's all of our therapists.
Literally everybody I know. Everybody I know.
Each of us has gone to her in her
Yeah.
Also
pivotal,
the reason you can't get an appointment with
Yeah,
her.
yeah,
pivotal moments.
I had to like start texting. I was like, "Anna, I
Yeah.
literally sent everybody to you, but that doesn't mean I can't get an appointment."
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
she's like, "Just text me. I'll squeeze you in."
But look at where the world's come with,
Yeah.
5 men, brown men,
Yeah.
Upper Name one day are sitting here and we're talking about therapy.
I think it's
we all have
phenomenal.
the same
Yeah.
therapy.
I was listening to one of your podcasts or interviews, and January 2019,
Right.
you do a show,
Yeah.
the Imperial,
Yeah.
and it's a snowy day, and you're like, oh man, no one's gonna come,
Right.
and you sell the thing out.
Yeah.
It's completely sold out. You got the recognition, I guess, in a way,
Right.
in the form of bodies.
Right.
You go on stage, you
Yeah.
absolutely crush it,
Right.
and then there's that satisfaction one would think. You go back to the green room and
Yeah.
there's this emptiness that starts to form and so forth. I want you to speak about that.
Yeah.
What exactly was going on in that moment? Because hypothetically speaking, for an artist, that would have been seen as like
That's
the
the
pinnacle.
That's the moment, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then you should have been at peace, but you felt empty.
Yeah.
And then it made me think of this thing that Gunwar Grewal said, where he talked about, I have success and I'm busy and so forth. But sometimes jehdi man di chain a, oh nahi rahi.
Yeah.
And it seems as though, is that what happened
Yeah.
to you there?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Thank you. I think a lot of people do this, and I'm guilty of this, where we, first we use language like, I am a musician. So now I have identified my entire being to this one thing I like doing. Now for me to have meaning in that being, I better be great at it.
Right.
So I put all this pressure on myself that I'm a musician, so now I got to be great at it. And the restlessness has nothing to do with your career. It has nothing to do with what you do. It has everything to do with who you are as a human and what stuff you haven't dealt with. So, but a lot of people think that the restlessness is there because they don't have enough money, they don't have enough fame, they don't have enough. And that's why how many rich people and famous people say, well, I wish everybody could get here so they could see that's not the answer, And that's not, of course, not in any way disrespectful to somebody who's struggling financially. Like, I think financial freedom is so important. Like, I don't buy that bullshit of, money doesn't buy you happiness. Like,
No.
I think society feeds people lies.
Yeah, for sure.
I think money is a healthy energy and a resource that definitely won't buy you happiness, but it will buy you a way out of some very unhappy places.
For sure.
So you can then do the work towards your happiness.
Absolutely. Tell
Right.
someone in poverty money doesn't buy you
like,
happiness.
I don't
right?
have time to go to and spend time on therapy and money on therapy
Yeah.
and time on my meditation if I have to put in a 9-hour shift every morning
Straight up.
because I have to pay. So I have a lot of respect for people who are doing that. But yeah, so anyways, coming back to that, it was just like, I'm there now and I'm like, this is the pile I thought I needed to, put together, and it's big enough. And I'm playing this show and it's hometown, it's sold out in a snowstorm. And I go back to the green room and it's like, I didn't even after my show go out and see the people.
No, crazy.
And they were all my friends, people I love were all there. I didn't even go out and say hi to anybody because I was like I knew my energy was so, I was vibrating so low that they wouldn't even, they'd be like, hold on.
It's going to come off as disingenuous.
Yeah, it's going to come across as like, this guy doesn't care.
Yeah.
Which was I cared too much.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I'm not at a level of vibration and harmony that I want my friends to see me at. Because they're going to expect me to be like, this guy's going to be over the moon right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, why is this? That was my broken open moment where it was like, if I'm gonna get here and I'm not gonna be happy, then what's the point of trying to keep going to Electric Forest or Coachella or whatever?
Right.
I'm gonna be the same person after that green room too.
Right.
And right after that, COVID happened, and that pushed me into therapy. That's where it started.
Oh, so your journey in therapy was recent.
It started. Oh yeah, but the thing that serves me is that when I find a light or when I find something that's gonna help me, I commit.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking to Anna. She's like, you know, like, I wish I had more people like you that came and saw me, because I tell you something that's good for you, and by next week or by next month, you have done a degree on it.
That's dope.
You know, the first time I saw her, she told me about the idea of radical acceptance. Next time I went to see her, I'd read a book on it.
Oh shit.
And I was telling her what I learned.
Oh, crazy.
You know.
Right.
So I think from there that journey started, but I learned that from there very quickly that if you think your career, your money's gonna make you happy, it can bring you satisfaction to a certain degree if you enjoy what you do, but peace has nothing to do with what your accomplishments are.
Yeah.
Peace
Or
has
external
everything to do
values.
with expression, which is why music became, coming back to the question you just asked, like why was the shift from like the business to the music, was like I find way more peace in expression of art through me versus building businesses. I am blessed that I'm good at both.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy building teams, because the difference is now I look at my business as art.
Right. Yeah.
I don't look at it as like, this is how I make my money. The money is just a byproduct of what we do.
Right.
But I think businesses are like little ecosystems we build, and we make the rules. You guys can run your
just straight
companies
up.
however you want.
Yeah.
And I think that's the ultimate creativity. It's freedom to build a little world where like you talk, you relate, you do this, and then together we create this output.
It's funny that took us a few years, because you know you start a business and you're like, okay, I got to follow the rules, I got to do this, I got to have everything right, and you can't swear and you can't do this. And I think a few years into it, we're like, well, what the fuck are we doing? I don't have a boss anymore. I don't report to a manager anymore.
Right.
Do whatever you want.
Do what you
Be
want.
respectful. You're a good person.
Exactly.
But do whatever you want. And that expression, I think, means that definitely speaks to us a lot.
Yeah.
So how did this journey start? And like, so your music, and I was listening to a lot of it yesterday, just to refresh myself for the podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm used to listening to music with a lot of vocals.
Yeah.
Right? And your music, it does have vocals, but not a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I was listening to the song Escape, and I'll tell you kind of what it did to me.
Sure.
It was a whirlwind of emotions. It reminded me I have a lot of issues with abandonment. My dad left us in 99, so we were like, 11 years old. And so anyone in my life, I hoard people. I am not good with people leaving me.
Right.
And I did a lot of work with Anna around that as well. And I've kind of come to terms with it, but I was able to listen to the song and remember what abandonment felt like, but it didn't fuck me up, for lack of a better word. It didn't take me 10 steps back. It was just like, oh, that's familiar. I remember that feeling, and I remember that timestamp in my life.
Right.
That song Escape, what was I don't know how deep you want to get into it, but like, what was the feelings, emotions, and everything that went into that? Because like, I obviously everyone's listened to Closer, and that's first of all, congratulations on a wildly successful song, like insane.
Fantastic
And to
track.
come from where we grew up from, it's something special. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it.
Awesome.
It's like to have like one of us make and do it is amazing. But that song Escape, and it's the other thing about your music is when I listen to it, since it doesn't have vocals, it gives me something different every time.
Yeah.
And so I find myself going back to it, and and then this Escape. The first time I heard it, and I was like, okay, cool. And even when Closer came out, sorry, I'm rambling now. I was like, oh wow, Asad's having a moment right now.
Right.
He's having a moment. And then you dropped your album, and I realized this is your arrival.
Right.
You're not having a moment. This is your arrival, and this is your diving board for what's coming next. And I immediately was tuned in, like, okay, like I'm more than a fan. You're a friend of mine. I'm more than a fan. And I need to know what's coming next.
Right.
But going back to that song Escape, what was the emotions going into that?
Yeah, there's two things I want to touch on that. Firstly, like, thank you for all the love in the music. Like, when you started posting my music when you're running and stuff, I was like, whoa, like people are listening to my music. Like, that's crazy.
While they're working out.
Yeah. I was very moved by instrumental music that didn't have vocals on my first few experiences at a music festival. And I think it's what you said. The thing with lyrics is that, especially when you understand like I listen to a lot of music with lyrics. Obviously, I listen to a lot of Qawwali and all that. But when you listen to music with lyrics, a lot of times the messaging of the words forces the way you're thinking.
Yeah.
It says, like if you're listening to Drake and it's hype and it's like, you gotta get into that. That's
same zone. You know what you're
that's
getting.
Your feeling. You listen to a great Biggie record and it's about whatever his hustle. You get into that mindset.
Yeah.
What I like about instrumental music is that it's sonically it's a space to explore in any way you want.
Right. Yeah.
There's a feeling, there's an emotion, there's a certain chord that is playing that's like a minor chord, maybe it's melancholy or whatever it is. But beyond that, you're not really doing much. So what your experience with Escape is completely different than what might have been or what yours might be.
Yeah.
Because the way I hope I have the language to explain this, but like the way we respond to something, everything is vibration, right? Everything is vibration. Music is just a form of vibration. Vibration creates sound. But when I was in school, I did electrical engineering, and you had to study this idea of resonance. When two things are in resonance, they work really well together. They come together really nicely, and they pick each other up. There's resonance there. The way you connect with an audio recording that is a vibration, you resonate it at the level that you're internally resonating at.
Right.
The frequency at the vibration you're at and the mood you're in and the place you're at, the song is only going to be able to show you a mirror of that.
Yeah.
Because it's resonating with that.
Yeah.
The special thing about that song is that the sitar on that is played by my Guruji.
Oh, right.
So I started studying classical Hindustani music this year.
Oh, wow.
And because I just it was the approach to classical music Indian classical music is very holistic. Western classical music can be very technical, keyboard and like techniques and all that. Indian classical music is it's a form of meditation that is so beautiful.
Yeah.
I started seeing him, and I was going to see him twice a week. I started once a week. First day I went, I was like, I gotta do this more.
Couldn't get enough of it.
I was like, I need to see you twice at least.
Yeah.
So I see him twice a week. I actually had no idea who he was. I just heard that there's a sitar player in town, and I reached out to him with so much ignorance, not realizing who he is. I'm like,
right.
Hey man, I heard you play the sitar. I'd love to record you on a song. And he's so humble. He didn't say anything about his credentials, who he is, whatever. He's so understated. He just comes to my house, records the sitar. But while he's playing, he has this presence in the room. Everybody's quiet, and they're like, hey, are you okay? We're all serving him. And he's younger than I am.
What?
He's 27 years old, 28 years old.
What?
And I'm like, he has this beautiful energy and presence and groundedness. And I think the magic in Escape is all him.
Yeah.
It's what he's playing this beautiful sitar that just carries you. And every time I listen to it, it's giving me a different.
Yeah.
I named the album. I gave the album title song to that song. I was gonna give it to a different song initially.
Okay, so that came after.
Yeah, and I was like, that was the last song I recorded.
Really?
That wasn't even gonna be on the album.
What?
But he just last minute we recorded, and from him now I'm learning he's changing my relationship to music in a completely different way. It's making my relationship with music much more. Music to me is God. Music is the same as the rest of the universe. It's this big unifying energy, and I think it's when you realize how endless it is, it's so humbling. You can spend your entire lifetime on one instrument and you won't master it.
Crazy.
People play the sarangi in India, Pakistan, folk instruments. People practice 14, 15, 16 years.
So then did you start digging into the Ravi Shankar?
Oh yeah, I mean I was always a fan, but now I'm learning what the rags are, and I should say that I do not know shit. Yeah. I'm very new, and
humble
I'm
servant
very,
of music.
very humble, and I want to learn, and what excites me more than anything is just when I have an moment with him. I'm like, oh right, I understand this, or I understand why this feels this way.
Right.
To me, that's really exciting because I feel like all the music I've made so far has been with ignorance about that part of the world. And now as I dive into that really excites me about writing music, because I think that's going to allow me to really truly express musically what I want to do.
It's wild because people would say, the success that you're seeing, it'd come with, lack of a better word again, arrogance, but you're taking steps backwards and you're realizing, hold on, I need to do some more groundwork.
Absolutely.
And it's wild that you're still mastering your craft and creating new crafts as if you don't have enough on your plate already. This guy's I'm gonna learn the sitar, the ras, which there's thousands. How do you that's insane.
And on that note, I'm really interested in knowing, and I think both of us are, the integration of the violin
Right.
into a lot of your work.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily done beforehand. I don't quite remember. Like it's
Yeah.
not. It doesn't really have a place in Indian classical.
Yeah, it's a little bit, but not as much as a
Yeah.
sitar or a
So
sarod,
how
yeah.
did that and then your relationship with
Raginder.
is that how
Yeah.
you pronounce his
Yeah.
name? Yeah.
Yeah, no, Raginder and we became great friends, but man, I feel like I have so many stories to tell you guys.
Yeah.
I was in a desert in Morocco in 2000.
Hold on. Anybody that opens a story like that, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Go on, my man. Go on.
It gets better. I was in a desert in Morocco. I think it's 2018, February, my 30th birthday, and
Wow.
I was going alone. And then last minute, my baby sister's like, "Hey, can I come?" I was like, "Cool." So, and my sister and I didn't have much of a relationship at the time. She's 10 years younger than I am.
Right.
You know, she was going to high school and stuff while I was always out of the house working. So I was like, it would be great to connect with my sister and build that relationship. And so we go to Morocco, and one of my friends joins us, and now we get to the desert, and we like get on these camels and we ride it right into the desert, and now we're camping in the middle of the desert underneath the entire Milky Way, like the entire Milky Way. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life, right? And like the lights from just the stars and the moon is enough to light up the whole desert at night.
Crazy. So
Because there's no light pollution, nothing. You're just sitting there.
Yeah.
And you know, we had done some psychedelics, and I was listening to Raginder's music on my headphones. And I remember thinking, wow, this guy's music is so. I was
This is
such.
before you guys have had a relationship.
Yeah, I was just such a huge fan.
Crazy.
Like I had played weddings with him, where you get because both of us have a very similar journey. We both did weddings.
Okay.
Actually, side note quickly, without talking to each other, both of us named our first albums Escape.
Oh no way! His is Escape too.
And it was just like, and I called him after. I was like, yo,
Harmony.
I found out that your album's also called Escape. I'm so sorry, bro. I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
He's like, I was laughing because I was like, that's how synergy is
Yeah,
like working
yeah.
right now.
Yeah,
Because I was telling him my escape was like escape from my old
Yeah.
to like what I
Yeah.
want to go into next.
Right.
He had the same thing for both of us, was like leaving the wedding world behind. So I was listening to his music, and I was like playing it for Vic and my sister. And I thought, man, it'd be amazing to make music with this guy one day. Like, I would just love to record that sound.
Manifestation.
And because I had listened to bass music and electronic music and Closey, and she was doing this amazing sound with like Asian instruments, where like the koto and like Japanese instruments, but with bass music. And in my head, I was like, man, there's a world where you can do that with South Asian instruments, like sarangis. And it has been like guys like Dalvin Singh, all these guys were doing it, but maybe not as much in the bass music world as I'd like to be in.
Right.
So from that trip, you fast forward exactly a year, like to the T, exactly a year, and him and I make our first song together, Suffer. 8 months later, we're on the same stage in New York at a festival, and he's doing sound check, and I show up, and then he plays with me. I go, right after New York, I go to LA and I write an album with him, which comes out this year.
Oh, so that's the next project?
I have an album done with him that comes out.
You know, it's wild. I say this to all of our young guys that are out there, like trying to figure life out. You know, what you're seeking out there is out there seeking you as well.
100%.
The only thing in the middle is time, and that requires patience. We were just talking about that last podcast.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example of that,
Yeah.
where both these two energies are working, and now the only thing was in the middle is time.
Yeah.
And once that happens, look how it blows up. You guys have an album together. You're probably going to be touring together, not the world.
Yeah, November we're going on tour.
Fucking
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got to just wait till serve the universe, and then it'll serve you back. Like
100%, man. I believe that. I do think your thoughts and your actions, thoughts especially, because actions you can see them.
Yeah.
Thoughts you don't hold yourself
They're
accountable
yours, they're
for.
personal, yeah.
And your thoughts put out into the river of consciousness what you want. And if you're always thinking negatively, like, oh, my life sucks, this and that, that's what's going to keep coming back.
Crazy.
And if you can be, and I think that's where the gratitude is a really big one. If you're in the morning, you're like, man, I'm just grateful I got all this stuff coming to me. The universe says, well, this person knows how to receive, so just keep giving.
Yeah.
You know, then you start seeing synergies that you're like, whoa, how are these things happening? How am I recording music with these amazing musicians?
Straight up.
And then from there, like Alam Khan, who's comes from a family of like the Akbar Ali Khan family, which is like a century-long gharana of the sarod instrument. He had this song I heard, and Raginder ended up knowing him, and then like Randa connected with him, and him and I are talking about music now.
Yeah.
So it's just like the way it happens is like I've learned that scarily, man, like I'm at a point in my life where I feel like the second I think of something, now it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
It's just
We're at
I have that
point
faith.
now.
I
Yeah,
believe that.
definitely.
And if it doesn't happen, then it wasn't good for me.
Yeah. No,
Then
exactly.
yeah.
That's an interesting little tidbit.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't for you.
100%.
Interesting.
Instead of looking at it as it didn't happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Crap or whatever.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I want to know a little bit more about your creative process.
Yeah.
Is there a certain agenda, a certain thing that you follow? Is it different every time when you're approaching an album? Like, Kanye West goes out to Wyoming and, does a specific thing for a specific album and so forth. Was there certain things like that you did, or you had a psychedelic experience and then an album ended up coming about? Or you say, okay, I'm going to work on an album. Right. And then as you're doing that, you have a routine where, you're not going out or you're always in a dark room or what. I really wonder about creatives, and I think I've asked some of these questions to these guys as well.
Yeah, I think, and I'm sure these guys can relate. The thing is, I'm very new to music still. I think when I think I just started learning how to make music 3 years ago. And so for the first 2 years, I didn't have the skill set to be I'm going to go and spend a month in wherever and write music. Because I would have been how do I write music?
Right.
So I just spent, again, coming back to that, I get obsessive when I want to learn or grow something. I've just been going from coach to coach, teacher to teacher, anybody who will teach me online, YouTube. I was just building my skill set. And I feel now I'm finally getting to a point where I'm oh, right, I can, if I have a feeling, I can start to articulate a song around that. So up until then, it was a lot of sample writing. It was Closer came out of, I was just browsing the library, I heard the sample, I was oh man, I used to hear this at weddings all the time. Aunties would always sing this. Yeah. And I had a little beat made, and I was wonder what this sounds like. Boom. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Boom.
That's a song. Yeah. So there's a lot more, I think in the beginning of your career, it's a lot more trial and error. Yeah. As any artist, I think initially you're just trying to get, and overdoing more and more of that, you develop the things that you like. Now I know I like the sound of a bowed string, like a sarangi dilruba. So now instead of wasting my time looking at 1,000 different instruments, I just go to what I like.
Right.
And with that, what happens is eventually you have a sound. When people start hearing a song, they're oh, this sounds like Khanvict. This sounds like Rugged. This sounds like whoever. And I think when you get to that point, my dream now is, there's two things. One, I want to build a cabin in the woods. Nice. Where I am nothing but trees all around me, hopefully a little view of the water or something. And I want to build a studio that is all glass windows so I can look out to nature when I write. I think my writing, and you could probably hear in the music, there's always bird sound and water. And I have a really...
I love listening to running for that reason.
Yeah.
It almost amplifies.
Exactly, because you feel like you're in... I have a really strong love for nature. A forest is my happiest place. Yeah. And so I want to build something. I'm looking for something out in the Okanagan or something that's an hour out of town. Right. Where I can go in on a Monday, get my groceries, whatever it is, but I want absolute silence and solitude. Of course, somebody wants to come visit me, my friends, they can come. And the second thing I want to do, and I want to train myself to a point where I think I'm a good enough producer that I can do this on the go, is just take my laptop, my headphones, and travel. I want to go spend a month in Argentina. I did this on this album. A lot of the work I did on this album I did in Argentina because I was traveling through Argentina alone, and I love red wine and Malbec, so I'll just go to this beautiful vineyard and get a glass of wine and come back and set up my laptop on a terrace of my Airbnb and just work on tunes. Not the
ecosystem I would have thought for electric music.
Yeah, that's so. When you listen to if you open up my Spotify, my top 5 artists, none of them are electronic. Yeah. But I think being a DJ, you just enjoy music that makes people move.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that there's an ambient project at some point in my career that I will do. Yeah. It's just
like the Sufi and that sound. That's what I'm excited for, because even the Bodli on Closer, it does, if we grew up in any way, it does something to you. It's if you're from the culture, it's for your soul, right?
Even your grandmother, you're listening to it.
My grandma listens to the song. She's I was my friend of mine made this song, right? And she's how did he come across this book? How does your friend even know?
How old is your grandma?
She's 82.
That's crazy.
He's Pakistani. She's what? How is this even possible, right? And it's just even it's making impacts on people like that as well, awesome. Right?
And then on top of that, sorry to cut you off, but his grandmother at 82 was recognize the Bodli. My niece, Amari, she's turning 5 in August. Right. And when she was over a weekend ago, and she keeps, Daddy, can you put on Closer to my brother? And put it on, and I'd be sitting upstairs, and I'm Asad's song just keeps going on repeat, right? And she absolutely loves the song. So now you've created this product or this creative work that has reached to a 5-year-old and to an 82-year-old.
That's crazy.
Was
That's
that
like-
intentional,
No, dude,
or like
there's
how
no,
did?
no chance. I'm not worthy of that kind of intent. Like I just
It's in the ethos now. But that's the other thing. Like your music.
thank you for sharing that. That's incredible.
Your music it's gonna be here long past you.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you're cognizant of that and you're aware of that. It's in the ether now. It's there forever. It's
Yeah.
gonna outlive you. And how do you are you aware of that? Like do you process that, or is it just you're in the process and you're just putting it out?
Yeah, actually, I was recently reminded of that. My dad, to this day, like I'm sure he's proud of me at some level, but I don't think he thinks that I'm doing anything that is noteworthy because it's not academic.
Yeah, fair.
So the other day I came home. It was out for a walk, and I came back, and my dad and my sister's son, my dad and my sister just had a baby. He's like a year and a half, life of our family. My dad is so close to him.
Oh, really?
Him and my dad are hanging outside on the front lawn in the sun. And I come and sit down. My friend was with me, and my dad's like, I think this one's going to do something special. of all my kids, he will do something really big and academic and special.
That sounds like a stout.
Right?
Yeah,
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh man, Dad, I like, look at this house.
What are you doing? Right?
I'm like, Dad, like, I play music around the world. Like, I did okay. And I was like, yeah, it was so good, man. My dad is like, honestly, like,
It's a reality check.
I was just going to say, I'm so grateful for that humility check in my life.
Yeah.
Because he just keeps telling me, like, nah, you ain't done shit.
Yeah, that's good. Keeps your feet on the ground, right?
And then my friend was with me. She was like, she wrote like a little note and said, listen, like, I know you were like probably not happy about that, but your music's going to stay way longer than you're going to be around. And I think that is really special.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time I thought about that. I was like, whoa, like that is incredible,
Right.
because like Nusrat's not around.
No, but dude,
But
we're listening.
do I listen to him every day?
Yeah.
And
I listen
my
to him
kids
today.
will listen to him.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Yeah, definitely.
So I think that's really special, man. Yeah.
You are an innovator, and it seems like it's just in your DNA. You did it with the DJ industry. You did something really special when you became an artist with Snakes and Ladders.
Right.
And I want to kind of touch on that a bit. First of all, you linked up with, Deleted Dublin. Anyone who grew up in the 90s and 2000s, they know who that is.
Yeah.
What was that like for you? I mean, that sounds like it must have been a dream come true. To
Yeah, life changing, man. That's another one of those coffees that changed my life.
Yeah.
Tarun, who is he manages me now, as he manages Khanvict, the artist. He's also my partner in Snakes and Ladders.
Yeah.
He also runs 5X, which is the largest youth festival in North America for South Asian kids.
Right.
Him and Ravi and Sanj were Tarun's half white, half brown, and the rest of the guys, both guys are Punjabi. They were the only South Asian guys I saw in Canada that were playing music at mainstream festivals. Like they were playing Burning Man, they're playing Glastonbury. Yeah, and I'm like, hold on a second. Like, I want to do that. Like, how do I get to that? It was the same kid who saw the MIB guys come in and said, I'm here. How do I? So I called him up. I said, hey, T, like, he booked me to play a after party for 5X.
Right.
And I think the gig went well. And he noticed that even at that time, even though I wasn't making my own music, I could sell tickets. Like if I did a gig downtown, people came.
Crazy.
And so he was really intrigued by that. And so we had coffee, and I told him, I was like, man, I'm pretty bored of like what I'm doing now. Cause I think at DJing, I'd reached a creative, a creative wall where I knew the music so well and I knew the people so well that it didn't challenge me enough anymore.
Yeah.
I was telling you
last
last
an
time.
artist more than that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I walked into Royal King and I would see the first table and who's sitting on that table, and I could tell you exactly what songs they're gonna jam out to that night.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah,
honestly,
I just would walk in. I was like, oh, and people gave me so much love at that time that I was like, I'm not the DJ I used to be because I'm not challenged enough anymore.
Yeah.
So I wasn't having fun because people were like, oh, you killed it. I was like, I didn't feel like I killed it.
Yeah.
You guys had a good time.
You hate the safe route.
Yeah.
It seems like you hate that nothing turns you off than the
Dude,
safest way
I
out.
want to be in a state of growth my whole life.
Yeah. It's infectious. I hope you know that. It literally bleeds out onto other people around you, so don't change.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, man. Yeah, so it's from like doing that and then moving forward from that was, I think that's been the key for me is just like learning to make that call and like go for that coffee. So I met up with Tarun and he's like, well, what's the dream? And I realized that's a really important question to ask people. Now I meet people, the first question I ask like, hey, what's your dream?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what? I'm like, yeah, what's your dream?
Yeah.
Because he asked me, and the reason I thought it was an important question was because I didn't know. I thought I knew when I went to that meeting. Oh, I want to play this festival. He's like, what's the dream?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm stumped. I don't know how to answer that question. He's like, well, imagine your eyes, you're on stage and however many people you want in front of you. What is that crowd and what are you playing? I was like, I don't really know. He's like, well, let's start writing some music. Let's explore. And I was like, I don't know how to write music. I'm a DJ, but I'm not a producer. I don't know music theory, nothing.
Yeah.
We started writing a little bit of music together, did a couple of remixes to like Rahman's tracks.
Yeah.
And then he was like, how do we put these out? Like, no label's going to pick this up because it's like a Gia Jale flip. Like, we can't, So he had done, I think, a lot of work to realize that there wasn't a place that was putting out South Asian music in a very professional way in North America.
Right.
So both of us have entrepreneurial spirits. We're like, well, it doesn't exist. We might as well build it ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah, so we just started the label, and it's been life changing, man. Like, I've learned so much from Tarun on a personal level. Tarun he's 40 something. He's the fittest guy I know. Swims across a lake like it's nothing every day. Like, lives on a beautiful island half the summer with his partner, and like he's an East fan. And just like he really gave me a blueprint of what life could be like if I put in the effort into everything, my mental health, my music, my physical health, my business health, everything.
Yeah.
And I think you need people like that have done it before you.
For sure.
That you can look at and go, oh, right, I can do this. And he's doing this for so many kids in the city. Like, he's putting so many creatives on platforms, through the festival, through Snakes and Ladders. Like, I can't say enough good things about him.
You know what's crazy? Like, social media is such a lie. Like, these deleted Dublin, I don't even know if you can find them on social media.
Yeah, exactly.
But this guy's living the fucking dream.
Yeah.
You're not going to see it and find it until you're actually out there.
Yeah, out there.
It's not online. You're not like, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Like, these guys played Glastonbury, and people that grew up on deleted Dublin probably don't even know that.
Yeah.
That's insane, man.
Yeah.
You are living a very unique life. And I think you know that. I think you know that. And that's really special, man.
If there's
really
any message you have to give out to a creative, or rather, let's backtrack. Let's pretend maybe there's an Asad in 2001 out there right now.
Right.
What's the message you'd give?
Yeah, I'd say a lot to myself at that time. I think I wish at that point, I don't want to wish anything was different because I think it's played out perfectly for the way it was supposed to. But if there's one message I can like reiterate to a kid that's like 13, 14, going through a tough time in high school, is that like anybody that is like any pain, any grief, any mental suffering that you have is because you are believing something that is not true. Anything that brings you down, anything that you like, if some kid tells you you're this and that and it brings you down, it's because you are believing what somebody's saying and it's not true.
Right.
Or you're believing a thought that says you are not good enough. 99.9% of our mental suffering comes from thoughts that we have learned to believe that are not true. And I think if you can, and at that age you're so young and you're so impressionable that it's just difficult to even. It's a difficult question because the thing I would want to tell, I don't think I would have been receptive enough to take it in.
Yeah.
For
You'd
example,
be telling it for yourself.
Yeah, I'll give you a really good example. When I was 23, I was in Toronto downtown. I was like DJing on a yacht, and I got into that was my first time being conscious enough to realize that I was thinking too much and I couldn't sleep at night till like 2 a.m. because my brain's not stopping. So I come back for a visit. I go see Dave Mann, who's one of my mentors and coaches through life. And I said, Dave, I'm like really struggling with this. And Dave said to me at that age, I said, before you go to bed, 10 minutes a night, just don't think about anything. Sit there with your thoughts. Meditation. As I was leaving, he said, the advice I gave you today, you're not ready for. Mm-hmm. But one day, you're going to come to it. And in my head, I was like, nah, I'm going to do it. I'm sure I've proven wrong.
23-year-old, how you
23-year-old.
Yeah.
I did it for 2 days.
Yeah. You weren't
And
ready.
so as I was answering your question, I was like, right, but would us at that time have been
ready for
it? And so glad you asked. Because another thing I recently read, or I listen to podcasts and books a lot, and they've like really helped me. I'm a big advocate of those. Podcasts in general, I'm so glad you guys are doing this because like I might not be a great example of this, but like you guys are gonna sit with people that have like 30 years of life, and then in an hour they're sharing some of their biggest lessons.
Right.
And then somebody's on the other side, some kid's just like, oh wow, like like say from this meeting, if somebody just takes away, hey, don't turn down coffees with people, go listen to them.
Boom. Life-changing.
That alone will change lives,
Yeah.
right? So you can't bypass what is the human experience of like the bullying or whatever happened to me, because all that gave birth to who I became.
Yeah.
And this I understood really well because coming back to Mark Nepo again, he's got a book called 7,000 Ways to Listen. This guy's a 3-time cancer survivor.
Crazy.
And just he's been down right to the end of his life and back by just listening to his intuition. Like he's about to go into an operation room and something tells him, you should not do this operation. And he stops the doctors, everything. Next day to find out that if he had done that 100%, he would have died. So he writes his book about like listening to that silent intuition in your head. He said this thing, and to me that's like the most beautiful way someone's described that like tough time that you go through. He said you can't bypass the human experience because it is the cocoon that releases us.
Crazy.
If you think about a butterfly, and when a caterpillar becomes a cocoon, it becomes this like really hard shell that's not pretty to look at and like almost gooey, and then it just hardens and then it breaks. And then a really beautiful light butterfly comes out of that. And it's then ready to go and mate and multiply and fly.
Crazy.
Our human experience, the bullying, the abandonment issues, the depression, the traumas, are that same cocoon that if we work through it and it breaks open, then it releases us as the butterfly.
Crazy.
So I don't think that kid can bypass that. It's just hold on.
It just
Tap
is,
him on the
yeah.
shoulder and keep it
Just
moving.
hold on.
Yeah.
You got this, yeah.
Crazy. I think we're gonna end it on that
Yeah,
one.
man. Thank you.
Again,
Thank you so
Hey,
much for your time,
Asad.
man.
Appreciate
Absolutely.
you, man.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
having
so
me.
much, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.